vacancy. It's the Organic podcast today, Organic number 3, and we've got Ben Warren from Somm Wines here today, and we're going to crack a bottle of red of his choice. It looks like an Angrove Organic. We'll get into that in a moment. So Ben, welcome.
G'day. Good. How are you?
Very good. So I suppose what we do on the Organic is we talk business and we talk about wine, and you're a wine expert.
Well, I'm a wine merchant. I'm a trained sommelier. So I've learned how to sort of try to judge wines, I guess, as in, it's all subjective, really. But we represent 18 South Australian wineries in the local market, ranging from icon producers through to emerging producers. So from John Vickery, Kevin Mitchell, Phil Lehman, son of Peter Lehman, through to guys like Anthony Pearce who are emerging with his brand Gestalt. So we distribute those wines in South Australia. We do a little bit of export elsewhere as well, but that's really our focus is South Australia.
Excellent. And so we're going to get into a South Australian wine. So I'll let you open it. Maybe read the label, let us know where it's from. Yeah,
well, it's South Australian. So Angove's, they do have a cellar door in McLaren Vale. They do also, I think, do Barossa wines.
So you can tell you're a professional pourer there. Not a drop.
Yeah, no, don't worry.
Many, that's right.
Yeah, I've done that. Look, Angove's are one of the first families of wine in Australia. They also own St Agnes Brandy, they also do Stone's Green Ginger wine, which I've had a lot of because I'm involved with Adelaide Uni Footy Club, and it's even in our theme song. They sponsored Adelaide Uni for 80 years.
And so it's even evolved into their...
It's actually in the song, so you actually drink Stones after every game, sometimes before and even during. So, but so Angos are a great family. Interestingly, this wine... says South Australia, which means it's probably regionally not from one specific spot. So it's probably from, numerous regions. That doesn't, the biggest thing...
When you say regions, as in like the regions of the state and where the grapes are grown.
Yeah, well, technically it's all started in France particularly, or they did a thing called classification about a couple of hundred years ago now, I think. And with the classification, what they did is they graded the micro-regions or sites of each vineyard from 1 downwards. So the most expensive wines being the singular highest class, and then it goes down in classification. So we've embraced that globally, and in Australia, we're seen as a new world region, wine region. So, for example, the Barossa Valley is seen as a region. So if you grow fruit in the Barossa Valley, that fruit, or that wine has to be all made from the fruit in that region. So if you say South Australia, which this one says, more than likely that means they've got numerous regions in it. That doesn't mean it's lesser or higher quality, like Grange, for example, is multiple region. But what it does mean is it's come from different spaces, which would have different flavour profiles due to heat and cool and temperature and climate.
Yes. So, and so because it's saying it's from McLaren Vale, is that right? No.
Well, they're cellar doors in McLaren Vale, but they make St Agnes and do some work in the Riverland. Riverland's in a really emerging region again lately. We represent a brand called Ricatera, which is the first 5-star winery from the Riverland.
A 5-star winery. And so how do they classify that?
Well, pretty much judging.
I know there's a 5-star winery, it's probably one.
It's all about judging. So, for example, scribes like James Halliday will give scores and ratings, and that's to help people make decisions on what to buy. And 5-star wineries, generally the ones more expensive because they're high quality. They're a 5-star winery, Angos, I think.
Yes.
So they're
out there as well.
They make some cracking wine.
And where do you find this rating?
Well, it kind of depends. The funniest thing about things like wine is that the market or the judgment or classification is quite blurred. It's not as clean cut. There's no sort of,
You've ticked this box, you've ticked that box.
That's right.
And then, you make it. What is it, a collective judgment of people in the industry, I would say?
Pretty much. And a lot of journalists, wine judges, you enter shows.
Obviously, I'm nearly got a winner of the Australian Organic Industry Awards.
So they would have submitted that wine with the other organics. They would have then probably had a blind tasting there would have been numerous judges. They would have not known which wine was which,
Yeah.
and then they would have selected which they thought was best.
And that became a winner.
Yeah, and it would have to be collective. So what they would do is they would have probably, they might have 5 judges. They'd have a chief judge, and the 5 would then score the wines. They'd find the highest scores, then they'd select the best parcels, and the chief judge usually calls that top wine.
Okay.
So there is method.
Of course. It's been going for many years.
And there's so many shows. So I worked for a wine brand before I had my own company that we entered a lot of awards. And you would, if you get an award in China or Spain or they're all different sort of weightings. So probably the biggest wine show in the world is called the Decanter Wine Show, IWC or IWC.
Okay, and where's that?
London. And the funny thing is, London, they don't really grow much wine.
It doesn't seem like a place that you would be doing it.
No, it's sort of I guess it's seen as the capital of Europe in some regards, as in that's debatable.
But that's why it's held there. Okay.
And I think the gentrification factor in London might have a lot to do with it, but that's the biggest trophy. So if you get a Decanter trophy or Decanter Gold, that can sell a lot of wine.
So do we have the South Australian wine that fits that mould?
Lots. Sidewood was one of the won a trophy in 2015 for best Shiraz in the world.
Okay.
Or best red straight Shiraz in the world. Look, there's been a few, I think. I think Penfolds have taken it a few times. We're actually in terms of, it's a bit like the Olympics. We sort of punch above our weight.
Okay.
And we grow grapefruit. And our regionality's here, we're really interesting. Like, if you want to live anywhere in the world and you like wine, Adelaide's pretty much
one of the best choices over here. So
and we don't have COVID-19 and lots of things.
So there's a lot of ticking the boxes. So tourism is going to be huge in the next few years.
Oh, it has been. Look,
and it already is.
It has been. Wine is a major reason why people come here.
Yeah.
Will international tourism bounce back quickly? Who knows? I know that cellar doors are getting quite a bit of domestic traffic.
Yeah, okay.
Visitation.
And is that from people that have been to their wineries before, or is it a first-time visit? Should we have a sip?
Yeah, let's have a go. Chin chin.
Cheers.
A bit of both. I guess what is really exciting, I think, being in the industry, exciting, is that little regions like Adelaide Hills. So Adelaide Hills is the youngest wine region in Australia. So everybody thinks Adelaide Hills has been around a long time.
Okay. And when you say young, as in
it was
how many years are we talking?
Well, 79 was when Brian Crozer started the Adelaide Hills wine region.
Put the first row of grapes in. Is that the good?
That's it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So Tassie's even older. Like Jance was started a lot long before then. So we're just seeing some maturity happen now in the Adelaide Hills.
Yes.
And the visitation, cellar door visitation, is amazing. So
the growth in that area.
It's incredible. So it's only, I guess it's because it's 20 minutes out of the city. Yeah. So you can even Uber.
There and back. That's right. It's not going to break the bank. That's right.
And the food there is excellent. It's become quite. Harndorf is one of the most. I think it's the biggest actual attraction, tourist attraction in South Australia.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's sort of, I guess, a bit of the Adelaide Hills wine region is like a piece of string. So you've got, on one end you've got Barossa, and on the other end you've got McLaren Vale, and then it goes sort of Kaipo through to Harndorf is sort of in the middle, and it goes out towards Eden Valley and that side. So in that one region you've got so many little micro regions. So where the fires were, which is
devastating,
stressful,
but
they lost a lot of vineyard, but that was in sort of one stretch of the Adelaide Hills.
Okay.
So Adelaide Hills on either side was okay, but there's issues with smoke taint and things like that from fire.
So there's going to be time for that to repair and get back to where it was, or restart? Does it become a new time and a new region there, or?
It's a very good question. It's a good question. There will be a lot of replanting. Yeah. What it will do is it will put prices of things up significantly.
Because the cost to redo that.
That and just demand. Because Pinot Noir, so in South Australia, Pinot is a really growing varietal.
Yeah. And there's a growing for consumers of that product as well?
Yeah. I think that the new generation of wine drinker tends to be going towards medium-bodied wines like a Tempranillo or a GSM or things like that, or new varietals, but also lighter and fresher wines with less alcohol. So there's a real push towards that. And also, funnily enough, all those varietals, except for Pinot not included in this one, grow better in our environment because they need less water.
Okay.
So you're seeing more Italian, more Spanish fruit growing, needs less water, better for our environment, easier to manage viticulturally speaking.
Yes.
But Pinot is French, means little black. So,
little black.
Yeah. And look, very hard to grow, needs a lot of water, it needs to be cold. And Adelaide Hills is where it suits, it's a cool climate region.
Okay.
So the fires really hurt that. Where the fire was pretty much the key Pinot stretch, or one of the key Pinot stretches in Adelaide Hills.
Okay.
So Lenswood, Woodside, around there.
Okay. Yeah.
So very devastating. And one brand I represent, Riposte, which is Tim Knapstein, legend of the Australian wine industry, 5th generation winemaker. And Tim planted the first vineyard in Lenswood in 1983.
Okay.
That burnt down. So that he sold that vineyard to Henschke. That is all gone.
All gone.
All gone.
Yeah.
So that's a really historical, sad thing that happened. But look, funnily enough, that was planted because of Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
So we've got to remember.
Yeah. There's an opportunity there.
But getting back to the organics, I guess we haven't really
What are your thoughts on organics? I suppose
we don't actually represent an organic brand. I wish we did.
Maybe you will.
Well, we've always been looking for one.
Yeah.
There's not
too
that
many of them.
No,
That's right. It's quite rare. So I was going to do 20 organic podcasts, but I don't even think we're going to get that far.
I was going to say that's going to be hard.
That's right.
Like 10 you could do.
I might have to go, further outside of South Australia, but
well, the reason why organics are so hard, like organic wine is great. The difference between organic wine and sort of your run of the mill wine is spray like copper sulfate additives that you do generally viticulture. Like there's 3 parts of certification of organics. So you've got the vineyard needs to be certified, the winery needs to be certified, and the winemaker needs to be certified.
Winemaker as well.
And they've all got to have 10 years of being organic before they get certified.
Yeah, it's an emerging market, so
really expensive though to do. Because to train a vineyard to be organic, it needs to be resistant and tolerant, and it just takes time. So there's brands like Koleski, Engoves, Battle of Bosworth. That's another good brand that does it. Temple Brewer. It takes a long time to get certified, and they need to be very patient. And also, it's very hard in wine because cash flow is hard.
Yes.
So what happens is you've got to have pretty much be prepared to lose money for quite a while before you get the reward for being organic.
And are you finding that people out there are buying more organic or wanting to buy organic, or the market hasn't really, the consumer hasn't really?
It's plateaued. It's plateaued.
Okay.
I think
there was a period of time a few years ago where
boom, big time.
Yeah.
Friends with the Paxtons, and they just couldn't keep up with demand. They do organic. There's a section nearly in every good wine shop. You'll see an organic section these days, which is just a rack with organic wines. There was a phase there where a lot of people thought that they were allergic to sulphur, which can be true. It's very rare though, but so it can be a little bit of overkill. It's a bit like the gluten thing.
Yeah.
And they thought that they were allergic to sulphur. They might be allergic to other byproducts of fermentation, so it might not be sulphur necessarily. But sulphur is actually a byproduct of fermentation, even with organics.
Okay.
So you're
still going to have that element in there
to a degree
could affect you.
Generally speaking, what you do when you make wine is you try to balance the wine, or you're preserving it. So the preservative, just like with food, you're making it last longer and stabilise, so that when you put it in the bottle, it's going to taste the same.
And you've got a longer shelf life.
That's right.
Export around the world, obviously.
But in saying that, organics can last just as long. So like a brand like Koleski, which I think is one of the best brands in organics, they've got 100-year-old vines. They're organic, but those wines live for 20 years.
So you can have it in your cellar for 20 years and crack it. Okay.
Yeah.
No, so that's good. Yeah, I was under the impression that you're going to drink it in a couple of years. No, it can be longer.
Well, there's another.
I don't know.
This is where you've brought up an interesting topic, because there's another movement that's very recent called the natural wine movement.
Okay.
Now, that's not organic.
No.
So natural wine is when you don't. essentially you don't finish the wine, and that's not a bad thing. So I'm definitely bipartisan on this. So it's extreme. This can be a very touchy subject with people.
So it's controversial for the wine industry. For novices like myself, maybe not.
Well, it's a little bit like vaccination.
Okay.
So it's like being an anti-vaxxer. Natural wine is a bit like being an anti-vaxxer, to a degree, without anybody's feelings. What you do is you don't finish the wine. You let the wine continue to ferment. So when you put it in the bottle, it doesn't have the finish on the wine. Okay. That is not necessarily a good or bad thing. What it does mean, though, is the wine generally ages quickly. So when you see a natural wine, they can look amazing. There's really good natural winemakers out there, but they also can be quite risky because they can have bottle variation. So you can get two bottles.
One might not taste the same as the other one.
Exactly, and they may be at different levels of the ferment.
Okay.
So they might have
more alcohol in one, or less in the other.
Alcohol's pretty good, like ethanol doesn't get too bad, but other
control that
microbes, it's like blue cheese to a degree, as in it's got living things still in it. I've had good and bad ones. Some sommeliers...
it's a natural wine. So they don't promote this?
They do, it's very hip. It's so hipster.
Where do you get that in South Australia?
Yeah, down the road, like there's a wine bar just...
the wine bar?
Yeah, they do. East End Wine Cellars have it. There's a really good wine bar called Hellbound, and they do a really good... They
do a bit of a... Bring it out, you talk you through it. Is that how the wine bar works down there?
Yeah, the wine bar is owned by a really cool guy called Mark Reginato, who's got a great palate, and he's got really interesting wines down there. Okay. So he'll be able to explain things to people about what's good and bad. He wouldn't put any bad wines in there. No. But East End have a section of natural wine. Yeah. I went to a restaurant in Sydney called Esther. That's bloody fantastic when you're allowed to go to Sydney again.
That's right. Hopefully soon.
Well, they only do natural wine, and it was actually A grade, really good. They even have Hungarian stuff, really interesting stuff. But natural wine is not organic, as in you can, I'm pretty sure you could get organic fruit and make natural wine. Sure. But I don't think there's, I don't think
they haven't gone that far.
No, yeah.
Okay.
And that movement.
So what's the difference? Natural is... you said a bit about the fermentation, but
yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's as far as it goes. Yeah.
Pretty much. I think we complicate wine a bit. The truth. There is 1,000 varietals. It's ridiculous. If you go into the world of wine, you keep going. Oh my god, I don't know anything because there's so much more to it. It's just layers, and each country's got its own indigenous fruit.
So you can spend a lifetime learning.
Oh, definitely. Look, I've been enjoying wine for 30 years and been in the industry for 20, sort of via being restaurateur, publican, merchant, brand manager, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it just keeps getting more complex. So, and that's the thing about fashion, things change and then there's parochialism. So in South Australia, for example, we drink a lot of South Australian wine. A lot of South Australian wine. But we drink a bit of French, we drink a bit of Victorian. WA makes great wine. Yes. But
we don't have too much from around the world, is that what you're saying? Only those.
French and Italian's pretty cool at the moment.
Yeah.
We're starting to see a bit of a movement towards Croatian, Hungarian, Greek. There's a new Greek wine merchant. America makes some great wines, and California has some of the greatest wine, and Oregon have some of the greatest wine regions in the world. Okay. German Rieslings, even if you look into German wine, it just gets so complex. Classifications in Germany.
Because of the age of the vineyards and how long they've been around for?
And the maturity of their palates in regards to, like with Riesling, they have classifications of sugar levels. Okay. So they could have sweet wines that have high acid, so they don't taste sweet, but they're quite, it's really complicated in that regard. So it just keeps on getting more and more interesting.
Right. So what do you suggest? Just find a good wine and stick to it?
I reckon just keep trying things.
Or keep trying?
And
so you don't ever drink the same wine over. I seem to be going back to the Gem Tree at the moment.
Gem Tree's a great brand. Yeah. Mike Brown does a great job. Look, it's pretty cool. It's good fun. Like as in, you keep on trying things. I just think that probably the key to wine for me is go find a good store, a good retailer, and find somebody you trust in that store, and then talk to them about what you like, and they're going to take you on a bit of a journey.
Yes.
It's a bit like going to a video store. Remember the old video stores?
Yeah, that's right. Those days are good.
Yeah.
Rather than now to sit there and go flick through Netflix and we end up wasting a lot of our time, right? Someone actually helps you.
Yeah, it's human.
Yeah.
And I think that the other thing you got to remember about the wine industry, or just this is general, this is more about business full stop, is that, you get the right tool for the right job. So go to the right store and ask for advice, and don't be shy, they want to help. I think that's really important. Generally, don't go to major retail, and I don't mean that in this is not an anti-major retail thing, but I just feel as if the independent guys, so your East End sellers, your Parades, your Goodwoods, your Booze Brothers, if you're in Adelaide, every city's got them.
Can you buy it from the wine bar down here? Does he do it?
You can't do any retail. Well, during COVID you could.
Yeah. We had an exemption, obviously.
There was an exemption. I don't think I think it's gone. I actually don't know if they can still do it, but they seem to not be doing it. They seem to have stopped doing any retail.
The normal process.
Yeah. Like bottle shops,
There's not too many independents though. Are there more in the eastern states?
It's a good question. I think that Woolworths have 50% of the national retail market now.
Yeah.
And that's because people keep on going back to Dan's. But I think it's really important that that no matter where you are, you look for the independent. Generally speaking, they're going to care more about what you
personally like.
What you personally like, and they're going to give you advice. Not that you won't get advice at Dan's, you just probably won't get the tailored advice that you're asking.
Because they've got a lot more customers to deal with.
That's right, and they're more about the actual process, whereas I think the wine, independent wine shop is more about the product or the knowledge.
And they know a bit about the actual supplier or the company.
Yeah.
Like Angos, for example. They would know a little bit about the person that's came in there, like yourself, that's explain the wine to them, updates them, gives them that personal service.
Well, we're seeing a massive growth at the moment. So, and that's not just my company. It's just I think the industry.
The industry in general. You were saying before that. There's a huge growth.
It's really odd.
Not what you were expecting 3 months ago.
So March was very normal for us, and then mid-March it just went.
No orders, no conversation. I think that happened for everybody's business for at least a week.
It's a really interesting graph, but let's not bore the shit out of people. But it literally was like that in the long run, but in the short run, it sort of went up first. I think there was like toilet paper. There was this sort of.
Let's buy a whole bunch of it because we might not be able to get any ever again.
And the retailers weren't ready for it. So they actually were like, oh shit, we're in trouble. Are we? And they didn't even know if they were a necessity either. So they're going, well, are we open or are we closed? Then they found out they were open. Then I've got this odd, I had this odd situation where I've got friends who work in retail that were working all the time in drive-throughs and bottle shops and whatever.
Yes.
And we all had to hide at home. And there was this kind of like, well, how was their life with less...
because they've got to be there and hand it out, that's right. And we're all staying home. I know,
it was quite odd.
It doesn't make sense.
Well, we've actually got an employee who worked at a bottle shop during COVID. We just employed him as sort of a trainee in the company. And you think about it. So he was working at a bottle shop. It was a drive-through, really busy bottle shop drive-through. So, and COVID testing was done in drive-throughs. So you remember that?
Yeah.
So you've got this drive-through. He's seeing 400 people a day come past him,
and he's not wearing a mask. He's not covered in a suit. He's not anything.
Crazy. Yeah. So, and I'm not that stuff. That's not even political. I think the government actually did a pretty good job, to be honest. But just really hard. I think we were just all in the air. But so the market went bananas. Then it just dropped off like a cliff.
And there was the orders as well, online orders.
We found the retail just went crazy. Our business sells probably 70+% to on-premise, which means to restaurants, bars, cafes, hotels.
Yes.
So we were stressed. Like we thought, oh God, what's going to happen here?
That's a big part of your business.
That's a lot. It is our business really. Because we built our company around the idea of being sort of local, diverse, educated, or as in giving people service.
Yes.
So it disappeared. So we thought, okay, this is not going to be good. Then, with the JobKeepers and all that thing, that was excellent. That was really good timing. But we saw retail soar. So the cliff initially went like that, but it sort of...
But you were able to go, okay, the 30%. Let's turn that into 70%.
And they kind of, no, they didn't do 70, they got to 50,
yeah.
they got to 50%, which is crazy. If you think that's almost doubling what they were doing.
Before,
And then what also happened was we found that people, I actually like the COVID-19 market. That's probably a really bad thing to say, but
it's an interesting market. We've all had to experience it.
Well, it's black and white.
Yeah.
So what we're finding is that it's like there's two sides at the moment, and there's like, okay, we are going to support local, we are going to support our industry, we want to take care of you, and we're going to do it more than we've ever done it before. And then there is, don't even try and sell anything to us, because we're just going to get rebates, make as much money as we can, because we don't know what the future looks like.
Okay.
So we're finding these people are just like, you're calling them, and they're going, how are you doing? I want this and this and this and this and this. And then
the others are like,
they're going, don't even try.
Don't even try. Okay.
But it's kind of good because
we can't have all of your market increase.
Well, we can't. We've been wasting our time with these guys the whole time because they generally don't care about. They just want to make money, and it's about get a product at the cheapest price and move as much as you can.
Yeah. Whereas your service, local help, and that's what's been growing.
And
that's
people
good.
we're seeing that grow significantly. So. It's a really interesting market, and I don't know what it looks like after September or in January or whatever, but for now, like June, we did a record June. July is flying. It's the 2nd of July and we're halfway through our budget already. In the 2nd of July, of the set budget we assessed only 6 days ago.
Okay.
That's how fast we're moving.
Wow.
So it is, and I'm not the only one, so it's not like our company is just doing something special.
No, it's the fact that it's dry July, is that making a difference?
I reckon the drinking, I am not endorsing everybody to drink heavily, but you are.
In moderation. That's right.
Like it is happening.
You're seeing it from the back end, that's right, yeah.
Well, so we developed a wine club for a golf club, which I think you frequent a few times.
Yes, I do, yes.
And it's just been quite amazing.
That's grown as well, has it?
People, it's like they've just gone, well, I'm not going to go to London this year, I'm not going to Bali, I can't even go to Melbourne to see the footy.
That's right.
So I'm going to get 2 bottles of wine tonight. That seems to be what's happening.
And also, my thinking is you've got to support, like you say, local. So let's just spend a little bit more money at the restaurant, or let's spend a bit more at the club.
And the restaurateurs,
they're
up to. The other thing that the restaurants are really enjoying, so it's not all doom and gloom, people. This is not.
No. It's just a shift. It's a disruption, and it's a shift, right?
Well, we've got 400 active clients in South Australia, so we've got a pretty good spectrum.
Good base,
and most of them are up. Now, what's happening is, this is some other advantages of COVID. Now, I know it sounds crazy to say positives, but so number one, people are booking. So instead of people walking down the road going, I feel like this, rocking up and going, hey, and then, because I used to be a restaurateur too. So
you know what it's like to have
it's
a
really,
flood or no one or whatever it may be.
It's hard because often everybody
What do you order? You don't know what they're going to eat generally.
You don't know how many staff to have on. You don't know how much product you need. So with the booking systems and everybody booking properly and doing sessions, so going 6 o'clock or 8 p.m. kind of thing, that's improving service, improving cleanliness, also people seem to be a lot more spending up. They're spending more, and the other thing that people seem to be doing more of is their consideration for each other is through the roof. So there is so much more consideration out there, and I'm finding that interesting. Don't get me wrong, nobody enjoyed the 4 metre rule thing. That was hard, but now 2 metres is really quite good. It does work.
It's pretty much back to normal, isn't it?
It's close. A lot of venues would say that. The other thing is takeaway, which is interesting. So a lot of venues...
Has that died off again?
No.
That's still...
It's like everybody's eating more too.
Or eating out more.
Or just eating...
In general?
Stuff.
Maybe it's winter, I don't know.
It's crazy. So a friend of mine owns a pub, and he owns 3 pubs, but one of his pubs, the Earl of Leicester. Earl of Leicester doesn't have takeaway retail wine, or they don't do any
retail. They don't have a drive-through, nothing like that.
And they didn't do any takeaway food. So he went, well, look, we've got to make some revenue.
But they're famous for their big schnitzels.
Schnitzels and everything.
Right.
So he he's very good with IT, made his own shop, online shop.
Oh, he was able to create that? Or
promoted it. They were doing, he said he just couldn't believe it.
The amount of schnitzels you're selling.
He said, what, people are pulling into his car park to get a schnitzel.
Well, people were missing schools, weren't they, as well? But they couldn't go to a pub?
He didn't think, well, nobody knew what...
That you would have one at home?
Well, Amalfi around the corner, Frank, same thing applied, really busy.
Yeah.
So Adelaide has really coped well with this situation. Yeah. I think we're
pretty adaptable, aren't we? We have to be anyway, it doesn't matter what circumstances we get thrown at us. Pandemic or not,
we've coped really well. Really positive energy out there. There's some fear.
Oh, yeah. And there's still some businesses suffering. Like some cafes are just not getting anything. You know, they're not even reopened. There's obviously some still doom and gloom around that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and they're not going to come back.
No, but there was too many.
Anyway.
That's so rough, but there were.
No, but it's true. If there were too many in the first place, that's why they can't.
But we've always done it. This is an Adelaide problem.
Too many restaurants, too many olive.
We over-cater. Yeah. So we just
what do you see filling up those places?
I don't know.
That's what I've been trying to think about, because you don't want to be driving around as half of it's empty.
I don't know what happens.
Obviously there's another half that's thriving businesses and we're all employed in those different businesses. That'd be great. But what happens to the rest?
We need more people.
Yeah.
And, do they come or not? Like, you would think about...
the plan is to have 2 million by something like 2040 or something, 50.
Well, maybe it happens faster, because if you live, I think more people would want to come to Adelaide now.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I lived in Melbourne for 10 years. Love Melbourne.
So they got 4 million people, roughly, yeah.
Yep, and don't get me wrong, there's the Kicker Vic thing and all that stuff, and
but they're our closest neighbours, so
and the Victorian Premier making his commentary on why would you come to Adelaide, and then gets a huge spike in coronavirus. Anyway,
that's right. So
but like,
was that done on purpose or not?
I think he was trying to deflect a bit of stuff because
he knew it was coming.
He's copping a bit of flack. But I feel that if you lived, like, let's say you lived in out of Geelong or something like that. Well, not Geelong, probably not a good example, but
a bit more like Adelaide, isn't it?
A bit more like Adelaide. But you live in an outer suburb of Melbourne, you're paying double the mortgage.
But
and maybe somebody in your family loses their job. Well, you'd have to look at changing
location. What did I see on the news the other night? That people were thinking of going like regional, like country. Yeah. Packing up, sell out. You're pretty cashed up if you sell out of Melbourne and move to the country, right?
Where's the money coming from?
That's right.
You'd see it probably even more than I do. Like, I'm seeing one sector, really, and we're quite sort of narrow-minded in that sector, but you probably see a lot more business wider out.
At the moment, it's very quiet for us.
Okay.
Yeah, in a collections perspective.
That will ramp up big time, I would have thought.
That's right. At the moment, it's hard to tell because nobody is pushing anyone unless they're in serious trouble themselves and need to pay. But the bigger corporations we work for, they're all customer focused at the moment. So, and that's mandated by the government. So
maybe the wall is coming October.
That's right. Yeah, it depends on when they change it. So we'll see. I can't really predict at this stage.
What do you think? So you'd have a feel for it. Do you think that with JobKeeper stopping, you think that's when it's going to happen, or?
It depends on the fallout of what can come back, and like you say, if there's too many businesses out there doing the same thing, there's going to be huge insolvency and bankruptcies, but no money in it. Not for the guys that are doing the work.
That's a good point.
Not for the guys collecting the money. The fallout is huge.
That's a really good point.
And that's why it's there. It's wipe slate, start again. That's why we live in a world like we do.
So I've not thought about that side of it.
That's where it goes, right?
Even if somebody goes under, you've got to collect, but there's nothing to collect.
So there's no money. It's a bad time. Yeah.
That's not good. No. But in saying that,
they may come back, and the economy evolves, and that's
We had a wall of debt. So end of March. Yeah. I run a company very lean. Hannah, my partner in business and in life, very, very good at the books and running the company financially. She's very strong. And so we did a lot of forecasting and then also looking at our debt management early on. And we obviously work with yourself. Yeah. We haven't, thank God, haven't needed too much. But we looked at $200,000 worth of bad debt walking into COVID, and we've walked out with 10. And that's not a lot to do with the strength of our economy here locally. I've been staggered about how good people have been.
That's pretty good.
And in the big groups, if they didn't pay on the knocker, what they did is they wrote letters. They were saying, look, we're going to be okay, but you need to be patient. The 18 wineries we worked with, we warned them. We said, guys, we don't know what's coming. We're going to work with you. We're going to be totally transparent and communicate. And luckily, we haven't had to. Everybody's worked together.
That's
so far.
great, yeah.
So I can honestly say that I was shocked by that. We thought, that Scotty's help was going to just be a band-aid, but
I think it's actually helped a lot of businesses.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's worked.
It worked.
But we don't know what's happening. That's right.
I'm a bit sorry.
Unless they can last it till we get international tourism back, I don't know.
When's that going to happen?
I know, but that's how long it has to last, I think.
I'm very happy that I went to Bali
got yours
last
out
week
of the way.
In February.
Is that right?
Yeah, we got back on the
your
1st of March. It was fantastic too, up in Allwood.
So you're okay for at least a year?
Well, we go every
What
year.
about everyone else who wants to go on holiday?
As long as we can go March, let's go. Yeah, I'll be all right.
You'll be okay.
Although I'm getting a little tired because I tell you what, it's been...
You've been working harder than ever, I'm assuming.
And the mental health side, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we were very active in regards to communicating with people about how they were. So we weren't just we weren't asking for the money.
No.
We had a lot,
how are you?
Yeah.
How can I help you? Is there anything I can do for you?
Yeah. Do you need?
I think there's a lot of those conversations were going on in all businesses.
I think so.
Not everyone, but let's say 90% of the businesses.
It was.
I think the commercial landlords probably had the worst hit.
That and accountants. I've got friends in finance and they were stressed out.
Oh yeah, because everybody wanted to find out the answer from that day.
As you said, not being paid to be a psychologist.
Are we going to get any more money for that? No, that's right.
They were being shrinks every day.
Yeah.
And some of my mates who are accountants, they're still,
they're trying to have a breather, but they haven't had one, and then it's in the financial year, so they've got other work to do.
They were reading continually to try and be informative to the client, but they couldn't keep up with the change.
Yeah, so they're like Scotty getting up there every day and reading out something. That's right.
Oh, mate, and we were all doing that. And one thing I thought was interesting about this pandemic is how social media, became so effective. I think
that's the only place you can look, basically.
Well, Facebook is now where you find out about the government's,
Wait for the update there.
It's unbelievable. Right. And you think about that, even 5 years ago, that's just...
that would be the last place you look for it, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, and I think it's also interesting that the media side of it is in... that local papers being shut down, but then they're trying to... The feds are trying to get rid of Facebook to be... sort of the newspaper.
They don't want that?
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? Buy the newspaper?
I'm not going to buy a newspaper.
I know there's something in the newspaper today that I need to read because one of my older business associates rang me and said, you need to check this out because so I'm like, where do I get one? And I still haven't read this article that I need to have a look at. You could have took a photo and sent it to me. It's probably the best thing you could have done. So does that happen to you occasionally? Someone says, where's the paper? And then I'm like, went to the coffee shop. No, it's not even in the coffee shop anymore.
You remember growing up and watching your parents and they rolled up paper on the lawn, you go in.
Get out the front.
And then don't bother me, I'm reading the paper. And you're like, sure, okay. And initially, I remember being even in my 40s. I remember, you get a paper and it was like, this is how I find out about what's happening today kind of thing. I'm trying to remember when the last time I bought a paper. I read a lot of newspapers online.
Yeah.
And I read newspapers now that I would never have read, like New York Times. And
you can get a lot of information, can't you? That's right.
You can, and you can get different sources so that you can get a better picture.
You don't just trust the one newspaper. You read a few, you might get a better understanding of the real story.
If I want to know about footy, I'll probably get the Herald Sun or whatever, but if when I find out what's happening in Melbourne, I'll read The Age, and if you want to find out what's happening here, Adelaide Now or whatever, but I don't generally read Adelaide Now because there's so many, I think that with Facebook as well, your friends are now your news.
That's right, and if it's popular enough or controversial enough, it will filter into your feed, right?
Yeah.
So then you go, okay, what's everyone on about? They don't like it, or they do like it.
Yeah.
Which way do you want to hear? And then it's also given a good divide that it's one way or the other now. I don't know, that shouldn't be the case. Because you don't get a chance to have a chat and reason with each other and go, well, this is why I think this is a bit where I'm leaning towards versus where you might be leaning towards your view. It's just like, that's all you get.
There's no editor. There's no editor.
That's right.
Yeah, and that could be a really bad thing.
That's right. I think it is.
Oh, mate,
we can upset people because they don't understand they only get a sip of it or something.
It's pretty funny sometimes, though. Like,
how it can transpire.
A famous DJ in Adelaide, I'm friends with on Facebook, and he, obviously frustration with not being able to open his nightclub because people can't dance.
Yeah.
But you're allowed to.
You can do everything else, but
I'm stupid and I play football again. I've decided I'll get fit again.
And you're doing it this year?
I'm playing footy.
So you can tackle each other. That's right.
You can tackle, right, but you can't go and dance in a nightclub. Like, I don't understand that concept whatsoever. Right. But yeah, so he, being a bit cheeky, what he did is he wrote on Facebook and tagged all these famous organisations. I'm looking for a bit of coronavirus. Where can I get some? And like he was tagging Stephen Marshall, he was tagging World Health Organisation, Scott Morrison, really poking the bear, and it was really funny. Like
did it work?
I think he's actually quite outspoken, so I think people are used to him doing that. But it was I openly laughed when I saw it because it was like trying to find something on the black market.
That's right. Yeah, where can we get some of this stuff?
Because we haven't actually had a community. Well, we haven't had it yet. And I've got my stepdaughter lives in Melbourne and runs a hotel in Richmond, and she's stressed. She's 24. That side of the river, so she's in Richmond around there, South Yarra.
They've shut down suburbs.
They've shut down some areas on the north side, but they haven't shut down their area. But you imagine the back of your mind, the back of your mind, that would really stress you out. I had some mates I've got some friends who live in New York. I had to call them a lot during the lockdown. They were really stressed out, really scared about what's happening. And even with the rioting and things, I think that really amplified things again. And we've really been lucky here. Like we haven't had,
nothing. Really.
Not really.
You could basically, if you didn't watch the news and you didn't really go to the shops too often, you wouldn't even know what happened.
Well, we actually were really careful about news because I've got an 8-year-old and. What we noticed at the beginning of coronavirus, and we didn't even notice we were doing it, but we were watching a lot of news. And one day I was going for a walk legally because it was exercise within that hour-long period that you're allowed to do at the beginning. and I thought about it and went, this is not good for her. So we made a pact in our household that we weren't to watch the news except for news time. And then if we wanted to watch any more news, it was when she's gone to bed. Purely because she just didn't need to know. She already.
Well, you're hearing that word constantly. So my son at 3, he's like, "Daddy, is the coronavirus? Is that because of the corona?" Like he just says it all the time. And I'm like, didn't even talk to him about it, but he heard it on TV.
He heard it everywhere, and Poppy was like, "Why am I not going to school?" And we're like, "Well, it's hard to explain, but it's just better that you don't at the moment. We're going to stay at home with you, and we're going to do puzzles, lots of puzzles, and we're probably going to start drinking quite early."
Like the wine's going to come out at 3. That's right.
Well, that was pretty much our time. 3 o'clock.
That's right. I think that's everybody's stuff.
Get off the phone to the 15 people about. It will be okay. No, it will be okay. No, it will be okay.
Yeah, we're all in this together. We'll be right. We can go live out in the bush if we need to.
I don't drink beer anymore, really. Like I haven't drunk beer for years. This is fine for me. And I reckon my first case of beer.
Oh, you went, you thought, might as well have some. If it's the last beer I'm having.
I went, well, let's just buy a case of pale or whatever. And I probably had 2 or 3 a day, but I went, well, I feel like a beer,
Yeah. But beer's one of those things you can drink a few of, and obviously the alcohol content's not as high, so.
But I reckon, I don't know about you, but I feel if I've had a couple of beers, I get a bit sort of
loaded.
I remember being a teenager and we're on Rundle Street, go across there, Exeter or the Austral, and drink as much as $20 would buy me in pale wine. Just
they were $3 or $4, $2, whatever. Yeah, that's right.
Whereas now, if I had 2 pints, I'd be like, no, I can't do it.
Nah, that's enough. No, I still like beer.
Yeah. Yep. Well, hot days, they can be good. And after football, it's 2
hours running around.
That's right. It's religious though. It's a thing. Like you have to. I don't think I've actually finished a game of football in the last 20 years, and it hasn't been, because I coached for a long time too. You would still
that's right,
have a beer.
Local amateur footy, that's the that's the norm.
Well, but in Melbourne, you're not allowed to have beer at the ground.
Oh.
They've had beer banned or alcohol banned in Victorian Amateur League for ages because of violence.
Yeah, fair enough.
And during and after. So if you're a spectator, you're not allowed to drink beer at an amateur league game over there. I think you're allowed to if you're like in high grade, like in the Port Melbournes, or as in the highest tier, or VFL.
VFL, okay.
But not AMOs.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, because they've got designated security and all that, the right stuff at the VFL.
Yeah, I think that's
But if you go lower level, it's not happening.
Yeah, which I thought was really odd, because I'm so used to, I played a lot of footy here, then went over there, then came back, and here it's like, it is literally like...
That's the only reason people go down there.
Get a deck chair, and there's an esky.
That's right. Yeah.
I've never seen really that much violence, but anyway, I don't know. Maybe that's just... But
yeah, hopefully it doesn't get ruined here.
No.
That's right. No, that's not.
I don't know how
that as well.
I don't know how they fix that.
No.
But like back to organic wine, it's just a process.
Yeah, it's just an organic conversation, and because you're talking about wine and everything else. That's the point.
That's the thing. Yeah. What for me, I see wine as I love it passionately. I like studying it, but the truth is, it's kind of like a connection piece between relationships with people, and so you drink wine to enjoy with people, and I guess it is organic. And whether it's organic or not, with the organic situation, I think that there will always be a market for organic wine.
Yes.
Will it grow significantly?
But
probably.
Market cap is like what? It's about 5%, 10% of the market.
5, maybe
Not
less.
even, maybe. Yeah, that's right.
But no, there is a market. It's a very staunch 5%.
Of course, but it's never going to be 50% of the market.
I don't think so. Well, I don't think the industry can afford it.
No.
So it's
you'd
not
have to wait
necessarily
20 years.
Yeah.
And who's going to be able to fund that? Major corporations, maybe.
You've got, let's look at it like this. So if what's a sort of key brand? All right, let's say Jim Barrick.
Yep.
Great brand from Clare Valley. If they were organic, would they sell more? I reckon they would. Will they go organic? No, I wouldn't.
But they would have the funds and the time to be able to invest over here while still producing, I would assume.
I reckon COVID-19's brought up a lot of interesting things. And one thing I particularly think it's done, not just for the wine industry, but for nearly every sector of hospitality in particular, and definitely with tourism as well, is the margins are slender. So if you're making a lot of wine, the margin's still, doesn't matter how big the pie is, the margin's always going to be relevant.
So fixed cost increases.
They do. Because
it's not like other businesses scale, fixed costs stay the same and you're making more profit.
It's farming.
Yeah.
So, and it's very specific farming.
So as the farming grows, the costs grow,
So I just feel as if, a really good example of this is, so of all of our 18 wineries, very few of them have back vintages anymore.
Okay.
So the concept of releasing a wine 5 years old or whatever, or holding a catalogue, they run out pretty much. They keep back a little bit.
Okay.
Not many wineries at all anymore hold back wine. The cellaring that's done is mainly done by the buyer. So the customer has to sell their own wine now. Rolling vintage is a real pain in the ass for my business, because you write a wine list for somebody and then, 2 months later the brand says,
we don't have any more, then you've got to change it. Yeah, okay.
Happened today to me actually. So one of our brands is flying, Riposte. They have good reason. They're very, very good wines for their price. And they're about to roll on to 20 Dagger, which is their driving Pinot. Okay. Probably one of their driving wines.
And the Riposte that's the one that we've given away, or about to give away this week?
Yep.
Yes.
So Tim and Nick Knapstein. Tim is the original Knapstein, which is Knapstein Winery in Clare Valley. He moved to the Adelaide Hills, to Lenswood, and Tim planted those Pinot vines in Lenswood, first guy to do that, has been making Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay there, and now we make Sauv Blanc, Pinot Gris, Chardonnay, Riesling and Clare, 2 Pinot Noirs and a Shiraz.
Okay.
And they're very good value. This is another thing that's really happened in COVID-19. Salespeople couldn't sell. So the brands, the bottles had to sell themselves. So
whatever you've designed
was there, it was on the shelf,
and where it's placed, and how you
and the demand.
Yeah.
So people walking into bottle shops, they weren't shopping. They were buying. So they're going in, I don't want to stick around here. You might have coronavirus.
Give me the quickest bottles and I'm happy.
I know that's good. I'm getting that.
Yeah.
That's what was happening.
And what they'd seen online, I'm assuming, that had popped up on their Facebook feeds and their
the numbers,
emails that they got, I suppose.
So we've got 190 wines in our portfolio.
Yeah.
10 wines flew, 180 didn't.
Okay. And was that the ones that had market presence?
Had brand equity.
Yeah.
So Dagger Pinot, Vickery Riesling, Toisner Shiraz, Parker Cabernet. Things that you think are synonymous with what they are. So when you think Coonawarra, you think Cabernet. When you think Shiraz, you think Barossa Valley. When you think Pinot, you think Adelaide Hills. When you think Riesling, you think Clare Valley. And it was that simple.
That's as simple
it was
as
that simple.
Okay.
And you'd have a retailer who would usually order once a month, ordering every week. And they'd go, 2 more, 3 more, 4 more.
It's not think about it. It's like
I was at a retail. So the reason I was running late here, rushing in, and I was at a retailer, and he looked like shattered. He was like,
when does this stop for me? That's right.
I said, is it cooling down yet? He goes, no. He goes, and I looked at the shelves, and there's all these empty boxes, and he just said, can you give me 5 dozen of that? Thank you. Can I have 3 of that? Do you need anything else? Not at the moment. I'm like, you're going to be all right? It's like, I'll be okay. I was like, okay, man.
As long as the money keeps coming in, that's right.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
And also because of efficiency, because of JobKeeper, which had a double-edged sword with hospitality. So you had, I've heard
different sides.
Big pros and big cons. So big pro was a lot of those kids with really good work ethic that were given JobKeeper work, wanted to do anything they could.
Because they understand that this is not going to last forever.
Can I paint the wall?
Yeah. Give me something to do.
I will
I'm not lazy.
I will do anything I can to be involved. Then they had the opposite. And you had, well, I'm going to sit on the couch and play PlayStation.
And I've got more money than I've been paid.
And you have to pay me.
That's right.
And they're not going to have a job in October.
No.
Like a lot of good friends.
They're the first ones that go, right?
They're the first that go. Some have already gone.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people I know that had to look into the legislation of JobKeeper and to make sure they weren't doing anything wrong. But they were too scared initially to fire people or let them go because they thought they'd get in trouble.
And they still had to fund it before they got paid. So it was 6 to 8 weeks some companies didn't get paid. So
I know.
Or even longer.
Even longer.
That's
I know.
Right. So you have to have a pretty good cash flow to keep your staff going to get JobKeeper in the first place, right? So that means your business has to be reasonably good, or you've got to have deep pockets.
I know pub groups that had to raise $250,000 to get JobKeeper going. I know.
Yeah, so there's even those situations.
Well, restaurant owners that had to take out loans.
Yeah. To keep.
I know one pizza house that what they did is they've got a name that there was 2 other stores that had a similar name, and
there was a confusion, was there, when they ATOs?
And the ATO thought that they were cheating the system.
Oh yeah, of course, which is fair enough.
So they didn't get it for 3 or 2.
They got an extra.
So they had to raise $100,000 to keep going because they were doing a lot of takeaways, so they had a lot of staff going.
Yeah, so they've still got expenses, right? They didn't go dormant for a while.
Yeah. And they're going to be okay because they could get
They were able
funding.
to go through it, but far out. Imagine being a business owner going through that situation. It's hard enough just being a normal business owner while things are normal and making all these decisions and employing people and dealing with all these problems and all the stuff that goes with it. Whack that on top. No wonder people got mental health issues.
And the other thing, that probably the reason why you're not busy now, I reckon, but you will be.
Yeah, we've
busy.
We've got to maintain till then. That's our issue.
Well, the people are not going to liquidate now, are they? Because they can get away. Well, they'll wait till the end. They're getting paid to not liquidate to a degree,
That's
and
right.
then they're going to go. Pew. So you're right. I think that the end of JobKeeper will see, no matter what happens, some kind of. There's going to be a shift. You know what that looks like, I don't know. One thing that is really, really interesting as well is we had massive growth. Another big piece of growth that was quite odd was we had regional sales growth. So I had massive sales in Mannum, Mount Barker, Murray Bridge, Port Lincoln, Port Lincoln, Southeast, Gambia, around there, Rome.
All the places you got to come and visit.
Which are fantastic.
That's right.
And we do need, they do need it, but
right.
they've actually grown. Okay. And I think what's happened in those places is the community couldn't actually leave or do anything. So that, again, they were probably drinking more. But what was also happening is a lot of the unemployed got an increase in their...
What they normally have.
What they
so
normally
they got
have.
more discretionary
Well, they
income.
weren't buying goon. They were
Buying more expensive stuff.
They actually were. Crazy. So I had...
I've got the extra 20 here.
I had drive-thrus in these small towns going, so what's Tempranillo?
It's a bit
So we
weird.
put it on the shelf, and I said, look,
Why not?
get a little bit. Don't do anything
No,
rash.
yeah.
Like, just get 6, you know, see what happens.
Next week.
And they had people going in and going, disposable income.
There you go. Government's funding this one. That's right.
It's like, remember when Rudd put out that thing?
The 750, the TV thing,
Well,
where everyone bought TVs.
Everybody,
Because that was as TVs were progressing, yeah.
$900.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Around the 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
And Hannah and I did probably one of the only romantic things I've done in the last decade. And we stayed at the Louise, which is where those American tourists spread coronavirus.
Oh, is that
Ross
right?
Valley.
Okay, yeah.
Great place, by the
Yeah.
way. They don't have coronavirus
Make sure
at
you
the
go
Louise.
back there. That's right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, amazing. Anyway, we came back through Gawler, and I looked at the car park and it looked like zombies were attacking. It was like a zombie flick. There was just like hundreds of people trying to get into this big W or some department store just because they'd just been given the check.
Oh, and they were all lined up.
It was like...
It's like lining up for
driving
assembly.
past going, what the...
And that was that time, yeah. I know, amazing.
And what is with people with disposable... But there's obviously a correlation.
But that's the idea of the stimulus. We want them to go spend money. Maybe not on TVs, but that's going to go back
But not
overseas.
like within 6 hours of receiving it.
But that's the reason why people aren't financially literate in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, they're just, as soon as they got it, they'll spend it.
And that's the thing, like the organic market, and this does
Yeah.
relate to it, is generally an educated market. And
Yeah, they're not just going to go spend their money on that because that's what they've had to work and they think, okay, well, I'm going to spend my precious money on it.
And they care about their health.
That's right.
So they're buying organics because they care about their health.
Exactly.
So if you care about your health, you generally...
Care about a whole bunch of other things that most people don't.
And you've got a bit of money. Yeah. And organics, you're going to probably... You don't pay a lot more for organic wine than
Not
you
these
would.
days, but you did a while back.
You did because it was rarities and there was demand.
Now it's down to a reasonable price, I think.
It's down to production really now. Like I just don't see... I can't see any big power wineries going organic purely for the economics.
Okay.
But they might do an organic wine.
Hopefully they do.
Well, I reckon they might do an organic wine. Like they might dabble, as in like they might go, okay, that vineyard.
We'll do a line, yeah.
Let's do that over there.
That would be great.
I think there's probably a likelihood of that. But the other thing you've got to remember though is most good wineries are close to organic. Like,
Anyway, I know. Yeah.
Like at Sidewood, great brand. You should try their wines. I
They
don't
call it
represent
biodiverse, isn't it? Biodiverse, isn't it?
So they're one of the most eco-friendly, biodiverse wineries in Australia or in the world. Nearly all solar now. A lot of biggest reused water plant in Adelaide Hills. So, you know, the viticulturalist there, he's an absolute jet, like one of the best in the world. You only spray copper sulphate if it's
absolutely necessary, isn't it?
Well, if your fruit's going to get sick due to bad climate, you might spray. You have to spray because you actually prefer to have a vintage. Yeah, because you'll get botrytis or downy mildew. So, you know, they're
not doing it just because that's what
they don't do it because the vine's there like an addict or anything. They do it just purely to protect fruit.
Yeah,
it's a defence mechanism. Okay. And also, you know, so Sidewood's got one of the best frost detection prevention systems in the world.
Okay.
So what happens is when it gets to frost point up there, they spray water. There's solar panels on posts, and it sets off a sprinkler system, and it puts warm water, not warm water, but water on it, which stops frost, which protects the fruit, keeps the fruit rating higher. So I reckon in the 5 years I was at Sidewood, I reckon we only sprayed once.
Okay.
So, but they're not going to.
But they still got to say they do it. That's right. Yeah.
But you know, sulphur will be added often in the winery
mix.
You know, it's kind of just added to stabilise that product.
Okay.
We're seeing a massive shift towards. One of the things we are seeing a massive shift towards, and it's already they've already done it here, is the vegan friendly.
Yes.
Thing. So we get asked a lot about that.
It's more about vegan than it is organic.
I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to see that sign up. You go to it, it's not organic, but it's vegan, and you've got more of those in those big retail chains.
And that's really big. And that's the other thing. Most wineries, a lot of wineries now are vegan, but they were anyway. It's a bit
Now they
like,
can actually say, hey, I'm
yeah, like, you know,
part of my
like
brand.
halal meat, we were always halal anyway,
Yeah.
generally, because it was good practice. It wasn't because we were like, you know, for religious reasons, we were doing it because we just thought it was...
It's a good way to...
so most wine is fined, and what fining is when you ferment, you've got cloudiness, you know, bits and pieces in the wine.
Oh, yes.
And fining is when you put something heavy, like egg yolks, ash was used at one stage.
Okay.
At the top, and then it pushes all the sediment down, and then you rack the wine, so that gets rid of all the, it's like getting rid of all the bits in it, really.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And it's like sifting it.
Sifting, yeah.
And generally speaking, good wineries all use clay, so they're vegan friendly. Because the only time you're not vegan is if you use ash, which is bones,
which they don't use
or
much anymore.
egg whites was used.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, I think we've had a good chat about wine, that's for sure. Thanks, Ben.
Cool.
Really appreciate you coming along.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ben.
Cheers, mate.
Somm Wine Merchants. Cheers.